Faith's youth group from St. Joseph's Church in Toms River, New Jersey, connecting faith and life. And you're watching Real Faith TV.
I'd say we have 4 different kinds of relationships. We have our relationships with our families, we have our relationships with our friends, we have romantic relationships, and then we have the most important relationship, which is our relationship with God.
The most important relationship in my life is with God because He loves me, He cares for me.
My relationship with God has been the building blocks for all my relationships.
When relationships are a two-way street, it means that both you and the person you're having a relationship with need to commit into that relationship, or else the relationship is going to fail.
There is a story that I learned from a broken relationship. It was a while ago, and it just wasn't working out between the two of us. And while I was sad that it happened, it took me some time to learn that I also have friends, I also have God too, who was there for me, who was able to comfort me. And by coming to church, I learned a lot more about kind of myself and who I was, and just to be able to forgive about the things that actually happened.
I think one of the many misconceptions that people have about relationships is that they're going to go smoothly and perfectly throughout the whole relationship, just like in all the movies and things. There will never be a stumbling block, that nothing is ever going to go wrong, and that's just completely unrealistic.
People sometimes get, even myself tend to forget, you also have relationships with your friends. Like, people don't think of friendship as relationships anymore, but they are. You have a connection with a certain person, and like you get to know them, as well as God too. You're connected to God in the same way you are with your friends, family, or even a romantic kind.
In this book, The Four Loves, C.S. Lewis wrote that
friendship is born at the moment when one man says to another, "What, you too? I thought that was no one but myself."
there is something special about the moment when we discover that another person understands us.
It shows us that we are not alone.
We are not meant to go through life alone. Being in a relationship with others is one of the greatest gifts God has given us.
Being in a relationship, that's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Carolee.
And I'm Charles.
And this is Real Faith TV. First, we'd like to thank the members of CYNGNUS from St. Joseph Parish in Toms River, New Jersey, for helping us open the show today.
A few of them will also appear throughout the show as our wildcard guests.
But first, let's meet our spotlight guests, Deacon Jason Porzinski, a seminarian in the Diocese of Trenton and the Secretary for Bishop O'Connell.
He'll share with us how we're called to be in a community with one another.
And how God is a part of every relationship we enter into.
We're not called to be on our own, isolated from the world. We're not called to exist apart from the community, which is a part of why we live in community. For one, is that we're naturally drawn to it, but we're also joined into a community of believers in the church. There are always obstacles and challenges to being in a relationship because sometimes people can get cranky, upset, they can get annoyed by maybe a habit that you might have. If we keep in mind how we can see God in the other person and that God is there with us in that relationship, it can help get us through those obstacles. Even Christ had his moments when he was upset with the Father. You can just envision in your own mind Christ yelling out, "Why have you abandoned me?" So there's something we can relate to there. We can be upset with other people that we're in relationship with, and we can be upset with God. If we take that same approach of mercy and compassion, we can too rise to that level of always being able to accept and to enter into a deeper relationship with others regardless. At the very beginning of Genesis, it says that we were created in the image and likeness of God, that we are created in community. Just as God exists in the Trinity with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we, being in the same image, were naturally called to be in relationship with other people. But every relationship, as with the Trinity, is three. There's ourselves, there's the other person, and then there's always God. God then is necessary as a part of any dynamic that we exist in, whether it's being in a relationship or understanding ourselves.
You know, I really liked how we defined each relationship in 3 parts, more of a trio instead of just what people usually think of just this person and the other person. He explained how it's this person, the other person, and God. And I just really liked how he thought of it and broke it down in that kind of way.
I also liked how he compared it that you're going to have your ups and downs, just like Jesus was mad at God when he said, "You abandoned me."
Yeah. All right, well, let's introduce our studio guests.
Okay, they are Ella,
Mike,
Joe,
Greta,
Sean.
and Monique. So do you guys think that all relationships are a two-way street, even our relationship with God?
That's what we asked Justin, our wild card guest from CYNGNUS.
Let's hear what he has to say, and then we'll hear from you guys.
Let's check it out.
When you hear the metaphor, there's a two-way street. You can either go up a street or you go down. And it depends which way you want to take with a relationship, whether you want to go up and you want to have a closer relationship, say, with God or a friend or romantic, you can go up and be more connected, or you can go down and it may possibly crumble or not work. But either way, you learn from the experience of the journey that you took with the relationship.
Well, I would definitely say that having a relationship with God, it's definitely a two-way street. You know, there's some give and then there's some take. You give God your time, you pray, you go to church, you do good things, and you follow His laws. But 2, you get grace and you get blessings.
Most relationships are a give and take, like, even though you may not realize it. My younger brother and me, when he was younger, when he was a tiny baby, all he did was eat, sleep, and cry. So I never thought I was getting anything in return. But looking back on it, I got joy in return, the joy of him being there. So even though it wasn't a tangible thing I got in return, most relationships are a give and take.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be that way because, like, I was just in a relationship with one of my friends, and we started off and we didn't really define what we were, and I felt like I was chasing after him the whole time, and like we were getting really close, but he still never wanted to commit to it, and then like the whole thing crumbled and we ended up hating each other for a long time, and it was just stupid because we had a great friendship beforehand, and then when we just jumped into something we weren't ready for, like it just destroyed itself.
I like what one of the people in the first video said, and she was talking about a two-way relation, like how a relationship could be a two-way street. And she said, like, really the people within the relationship need to really commit to it, because if you don't commit to it, then it would possibly just crumble and fall apart. Just like Justin said, like you can either go up or you can go down.
Do you think that going down sometimes could be good?
Going down sometimes could be good, yeah, because like if you're escalating too quickly and you just don't feel right in that position, like going down, taking a few steps back will make it a little like easier to see the perspective in which you're in. Like, do I really want to escalate with this person, or do I want to take a step back?
Me and my friend, like once we like were done hating each other, we finally just had a real talk, like, and we were like, okay, this is not what we want, and we just took a step back, and now we're like best friends again. Everything is completely back to the way it was. It's almost like nothing happened, and taking that step down like made us closer, because if we didn't, we would just hate each other for the rest of high school, and that's just stupid.
Yeah, plus you have to, take into account if it's a healthy relationship, you definitely want to go up with it, but if it's a relationship that's not going to be beneficial to you or is detrimental, then definitely you would want to take that down.
We often hear the expression that God is love. Well, what does this mean?
According to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, God's very being is love.
By sending His only Son and the Spirit of love in the fullness of time, God has revealed His innermost secret.
God Himself is an eternal exchange of love, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and He has destined us to share that in exchange.
Our relationships have the ability to bring us closer to this goal of sharing in God's own self.
So with God's help, our relationships can become healthier and holier.
But just because they can be holy doesn't mean they're easy.
Holding up our end in any relationship can be a challenge.
Megan, our wildcard guest with CYNGNUS Youth Group, found it challenging to enter into romantic relationships.
Let's hear what she had to say.
It's really hard to be in a romantic relationship and try to love somebody else when you have difficulty loving yourself. And in my own experiences, it's affected my relationship by sort of being an end to the relationship, because I realized that if I was unable to love myself, I wasn't sure how I would be able to love my partner.
Before we enter into relationships with someone, it's crucial that we know ourselves, love ourselves, and can be comfortable with who we are.
But this is especially difficult during our teenage years where we're dealing with changes in schools, cliques, activities, and interests.
Let's go back to Deacon Jason, where he talks about the importance of knowing yourself by spending time in reflection.
And shares with us how a meaningful friendship inspired him to pursue his path to priesthood.
To really come to understand who you are as a person, the most important thing that one can do is to spend time alone, in silence, and reflect. As uncomfortable as that might be, especially today, where it's very easy to put the headphone sets in, or to listen to music, or to go to a movie, or to want to socialize, or start texting, to put the phone into airplane mode, really reflect. The important thing, though, is that you start to understand who you are as a person as soon as you can. Really evaluate who you're friends with and the people that you spend time with. There's always that short list of people that we're quick to call. Look at those people. There's something about them that attracts you to them, and it's that aspect that attracts you to them that is similar to yourself, and that's what you're recognizing in the other person. We can start to see what our priorities are as well, because those people more than likely have the same priorities.
When I think back at some of the best friendships that I ever had, one of them was a good friend of mine, Rick, who's now a lawyer down in Texas. We worked at the same place in high school, and so that's how we became friends and ended up being roommates in college. Him being a Presbyterian, he was thinking about becoming a minister. Of course, I was thinking about becoming a priest. And I'll never forget this moment. We stopped to play video games. And we were sitting there playing those 3D video games and stuff that they had. And then somehow we got onto this serious conversation about life, career, question, and of course both of us knew what we had thought about, but we're never really that comfortable publicly talking about it. We both made the decision that night that I would go talk to a priest and he'd go talk to his minister to see if there was any truth to the feeling that we had being called to ministry. And it was that pact that gave me the encouragement and the support that I needed. And that type of friendship, one where that I was able to be very open and honest with Rick, that we trusted one another, that we were able to talk about those kind of things, and that moment will always be a significant moment in my life, and that friendship will always be a very significant friendship.
How do you guys know when you've entered into a true friendship with somebody?
Well, it's like Deacon Jason was saying, honesty. Like I have a policy called radical honesty where it's basically no filter. And if someone can accept you for every thought that's going on in your mind, like completely understand what you're going through, then I think that is like the closest friend that you can have.
Well, I think that you know when you're going into a true friendship with someone is if you know the person, like if you get to know their traits, and if you get to know their personality, like you don't just want to be friends with that person because, oh, they bring out maybe the bad side in you and you can act more cool at school, or they're like part of the popular crowd so you feel like I'll have more kicks. Like it's because like you trust them and they trust you, and you know, like you have boundaries but you can still like be open with them.
Going along with finding true friendships, you know when you're in a true friendship, when you can be yourself, when you can be honest, when you can share your emotions that you wouldn't normally share with somebody that you've just met. And just the little things build your friendship and create a stronger bond between you and that other person.
I think that you can only know that you're in a true friendship when you're in a state of such uneasiness and that you have nowhere else to go, that you know they'll always be there for you, that they'll have your back and you can turn to them and they'll always be there to help you.
Well, let's hear from our wild card guests, Katie and Rebecca, who will share what they learned when dealing with difficult relationships.
So I can say there have been many times in my life where I've been in relationships that haven't been so good for me. As a kid, I was always that one person who could be replaced. My friends would get other friends and they'd exclude me from activities. And in those situations, I've kind of learned to move on.
I remember at the end of 8th grade, it was the summer right before we started high school, and my group of friends just started completely cutting me out. I learned from that when people push you away, you gotta let them go, because better things will come along because God has a plan for you. And I found that as I moved away from that group of people, I found the group of friends that I have now, and there's just so much more of like a caring relationship going on there.
All relationships take work, but when we put God at the center, He helps us to understand each other and work out the difficulties.
A strong relationship with God can help us to better love the other person when we look to Jesus as our model.
So if you don't put your relationship with God first,
And you make your boyfriend or girlfriend the center of your life, your other relationships can fizzle for the sake of that one.
you may start making decisions that are not really you. Seeing God in the other person can ensure that the relationship grows in a healthy way.
It's not healthy to think that the other person will complete you or be your ultimate source of happiness.
God is the only one who can make you feel complete. Your boyfriend and girlfriend, they should be leading you closer to Him.
Next, Deacon Jason discusses the real purpose of romantic relationships during your teenage years.
And how dating can prepare us for marriage down the road.
A dating relationship in your teen years and in your college years is meant to serve as a courtship. And so if you think about dating as a means of finding the one, and if we are serious about wanting to enter into a permanent, loving, caring, nurturing relationship, do we want our future spouse to be engaging in promiscuous physical activity, to be treating themselves less than who they are, to not care for themselves, or to be used by another person? Of course we don't. So if we think about our future spouse and what we want for them, so that our marriage down the road can be healthy and successful and long-lasting, then we will come to recognize how we should enter into our dating relationships now.
Where do you guys see God in your relationships, be it romantic or with family or friends?
Well, everyone says like a major gift of God is His ability to forgive. I guess I see that in my parents a lot, since like whenever I mess up, they'll forgive me. So I see that gift of God through my parents.
I see God in my mom and her relationships because, like, she's just always saying hello and smiling to everyone. Like, we'll drive through town, she'll be like waving out the car window at like anyone she sees on the street. God really is like the love that like we see in her.
I think that you can see God in a person who you're in a relationship with through their attitude or how they act. And like, it just means like they're not all about themselves. Like, they're willing to give to another person and not just take and like dry you out.
I know last year I went on a date with like my dream guy. I had liked him for 5 years and like I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. I didn't really know who he was, so like before the movie started, we were like getting to know each other a little bit, and he was really nice, I liked him, but I still didn't feel like I knew him completely. And then at the worst possible moment, it was in the middle of a war scene, you know, he starts making the little like kissy face and he wanted to make out with me. And it's like, I like you, but I barely know you. And it's like, I'm not ready to take that huge step, and I wasn't ready for it, and neither was he, you know, and it just wasn't meant to be. Our faith kind of puts healthy boundaries on like what kind of love is appropriate, because it's like, I've known you for about 30 minutes, like I've known you forever, but really 30 minutes. And it's like, no, it's not time for that, you know.
Well, I think another thing too is if you're in a really good relationship, the other person's not going to judge you if you do something, you know, if you do something stupid, and neither will God. And like you said, they'll always be willing to forgive you.
Letting God into our relationships helps us to see another person as He sees them.
This helps us to know that we can best show our love for the other person.
A marriage counselor named Dr. Gary Chapman wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages, in which he suggests 5 main ways that people most like to give and receive their love.
It can apply to any relationship, like families and friendships, couples either married or dating.
A person might be dominant in one main love language, or they might have a combination of a few.
Deacon Jason explores the 5 love languages and relates them to the way we treat the people we love and the way we respond to their actions.
Let's hear him now.
The 5 love languages are words of affirmation. Quality time is 2. Receiving gifts is the 3rd one. 4th one is acts of service, and then finally physical touch. So if we think about the words of affirmation, when someone compliments something that you've done, goes out of the way to say, you know, great job, it shows appreciation for you in general by saying, you know what, you really are doing well in life. Quality time is one that I personally see as my dominant love language. You put the cell phones away, you turn the TV off, and you have face-to-face conversation with a person, or you go out to do something. The 3rd one is receiving gifts. For a gift-oriented person, that extra time to really find the right thing, to give to another person is how they show their affection, and in turn, when they see that someone has gone to that great length to find them the right gift, whether it's $5 or $50 or $100, the price doesn't really matter. The fourth one is acts of service. This individual experiences love and then also in turn gives love, affection, and appreciation by doing things for people. Say your mom, for example, is a acts of service oriented person. She more than likely would appreciate taking the initiative to empty out the dishwasher and filling it back up with the dishes there in the sink than she would anything else. The fifth love language that Gary Chapman highlights is physical touch. And these people are probably the easiest people to figure out for love language because they're the quick ones to go for the hug, to actually experience that physical touch. So those are the 5 love languages that can really help us. And if you think about what love language you are, you think about what love languages the people in your family are, and the people you've been in a relationship with, and see what worked and what didn't work, you'll start to realize just how valuable these things are.
What do you think your love language is, and how do you show your love to others?
Well, I honestly think that my love language is a mix between quality time and physical touch. Cause like I like to spend time with people, and I like to let people know that they can talk to me and that I'll listen. But I also like to give hugs, and I also like to be loving,
Outgoing and friendly.
Outgoing and friendly, and like I just want people to know that they can trust me, that I won't end up stabbing you in the back. Like I'm gonna be here for you, and if you need someone, like you can turn to me.
I think my love language is words of affirmation because I like to feel appreciated, but I don't really think that you can describe how you love. I don't think you can actually put a word on how you love. It's an action, it's a verb.
Yeah, right. And like you love each person differently. Like I love my mom different than I love my best friend, different than I love my guy friends. Like it's like you can't just define love into neat categories because there's always something to break the mold.
Yeah, I mean, the deacons did say that, there's people who have multiple different love languages that they prefer. But, I would definitely agree. There are certain combinations that, make a person unique.
Our friends and family members may want to receive love in different ways than we are used to showing love. This is something that we need to work at.
The main way in which we learn another person's love language is by spending time with them and getting to know them.
And taking such an interest in who they are is one of the best ways we can love them anyway.
Following up on this, Nancy Bachman, a pastoral associate and the director of the Adult Faith Formation for St. David the King Parish in Princeton Junction, New Jersey.
She'll present us with the image of the love tank and how we need to fill that tank for others as they fill us with love.
Let's hear her now.
One of the images that I love Gary Chapman uses, he says, we all have a love tank, and our love tank can either be full or empty. And depending on how we respond, as we just heard, with affirmation or quality time or gifts, acts of service or touch, our love tank will be full if we respond, if someone we know responds to us in the way that's appropriate for us. So I think what Gary Chapman does in a very inviting way is to help us as teenagers and as adults to really understand the people that we're in relationship with. What is their love language? And if it's your mom helping make your bed and you know that as an act of love, your love tank will be full. So I leave you with that image. I think it's a great image. Our love tanks are either full or empty. And being in prayer and being in relationships, what we're called to do brings this all together, and hopefully you can see how relationships are really important to all of us, and especially in those teenage years of self-identity and finding your own independence.
I totally dig her analogy about our love being a gas gauge, because when you're little, it's full, it's on full. You're totally happy all the time, you're confident, you don't care what anybody thinks of you, and you love everyone you meet because you're so open and friendly and outgoing. But as we grow up, we kind of lose that because you're not sure who you are and you're trying to figure it all out. So it's important that God's in your life to keep you on track and, kind of refill you along the way.
Carolee, I totally get what you're saying about how when we're young, we love everyone, but then I feel like when we get older, we start judging people, and that's what brings us down because we're afraid of how they think of us.
I agree with what Ella said about about people judging us, that if we actually take it to heart, that we could think of ourselves that we're not as important as we are, bring it down our self-esteem, and the more you bring down your self-esteem, the worse you feel, And if you don't feel good about yourself, then you can't love others if you don't love yourself, most importantly.
Lord knows, we aren't always easy to be in a relationship with. We could be very self-centered.
But Jesus loves us so much and takes us as we are to unite us with him and the others in the most perfect way.
The good relationships in our lives give us a small idea of what we can have if we are in heaven.
In heaven, we are in the perfect relationship, not only with God, but also with those around us.
God uses them to give us a glimpse of this perfection that he wants for us.
So how can you improve your relationship with those around you? How do you see God and the people in your life?
We'd love to hear from you.
Contact us at realfaithtv.com.
Or share your thoughts with us on Twitter.
And we'll leave you today with this thought.
Every good thing that God gives to us is meant to bring us closer to him.
By opening our hearts to God in all our relationships, we learn how to love as he loves.
And doing so brings us closer to heaven, where our relationships will be brought to their true perfection.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV.
God bless.
Pretty much a good day for me would be people leaving their hands off of me. I'm always called names. Everywhere that I go, there's always someone calling me names, calling me gay. I've been choked, thrown up against a wall, punched. Nobody's ever tried to help me.
Son, tell him that I've begun to dream of things to come, and tell the trees not to look for me. I'm going to find some peace of mind. Wake the sun. Wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks. Visit us at stoptextstoprex.org.